Welcome back. I'm going to tie a crystal nuke cluster, or you could call it a McFly foam nuke cluster. There's going to be a total of 4 eggs on here. This is a size 10. You could tie it a little bit smaller if you like. I'm going to start a bodkin width or 2 behind the eye. I'm going to wrap this back to about the hook point. And we'll go ahead and trim this out. And I've seen other nuke clusters like the otters, but they're the what do they call them? Like a gummy nuke cluster. This is made out of McFly foam. And so first I want to add a piece of crystal flash. This is just shrimp pink. You could add whatever it is you like. Let's tie this in going forward. Just leave that big tail out the back so we can move it around if needed. And the next, I've got some McFly foam here. I cut this down into a little bit more manageable pieces. So all we got to do is just kind of peel one off here. And this part's kind of important. You want to get rid of anything that's really sticking out to the side. And then what we're going to do is we got to kind of roll it back and forth to kind of shape it again. I kind of do the old, it's hard to do it like this here, but I just kind of put them between my hands. Kind of like you were playing with Play-Doh and roll them. Roll it back and forth until it starts to become smooth. I'm going to have to do it a few times. I just can't do it on camera. I don't have enough room. Okay, so we have something about like this. And that's where we're going to tie this in right up front at by the tip of it, leaving it all on top. Take it back to the shank and make a couple passes just to tie it down. And then we're going to bring it back right to the foam. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to fold this over, and the first one's kind of important because it's going to set the tone for how big you want your eggs to be. We're just going to kind of double it over on itself, and you see how it kind of starts to form an egg shape. We'll just go ahead and pinch wrap that in. I'm going to put 3 turns in here, and then to help keep these independent, I'm going to sneak this between my crystal flash. This one's always the hardest, and around, kind of like you were tying a parachute post. And we're going to put about 3 turns in there as well, and then you're just going to take it and kind of knead it all back together to kind of form the ball. Next I'm going to do my far side. So leaving my thread where it is, I'm going to do the same thing, but this time we just want to kind of twist around the base. Don't leave it twisted when you do it, just twist it to kind of compress it a little bit. And we can kind of line that up to make sure that the egg is going to be about the same size. Okay, that'll work. Again, I'm going to put 3 wraps in. Start to play with it a little bit to help form it. And again, I'm going to sneak wraps through as if it were a parachute post. Okay, that'll work. Okay, I'm going to jump my thread to the front a little bit. Same thing, roll and twist, flatten it out, get it to the size that matches. And we'll tie that down again with 3 turns. This last one we're going to leave right out the front. And again, wrap this like it's a parachute post. You want to get these post wraps down right to the shank. And you can start to play with that. So now we've got our 3 clusters there. Now I'm going to add my 4th. You could probably add more if you like, depending on how big you want your hook and how far down the shank you're willing to start this. And that'll work. Again, pinch, do 3. Sneak it in between all of them. Okay. I'm going to bring 1 wrap over the front. I'm going to do another one. And I'm going to bring my thread to the front. And we want to trim this off as close as possible So you want to pull tight and get some thin scissors in there. That's good. And then with our thread down just behind the eye, we'll start to tie this in, going back up the shank. We'll kind of work this back and forth a little bit, just until we have it all down and the hook eye is clear. And we're going to leave our thread back up by our cluster, kind of like so. Perfect. Okay, so next we're going to add a veil. So I've got some McFly foam veiling here. And this is just one strand that I've kind of flattened out, and I've cut it down to about twice the length of the shank. And I've already clipped the one side, but I'm going to clip the other side, and I'll show you why in just a second. There you go, that'll work. It's because I'm going to take a comb. Here's my little dollar store comb. I'm going to start about halfway through, using the big bristles, and run it through. And that's going to get rid of any knots and stuff, and then I can switch over to my little one, and it'll do the same. And this just helps, I think it helps with veiling, making the veil a little bit more even. Okay, switch it over and do the little one. Okay, so now we've kind of got this big worked out piece here. And if it's curving, just go ahead and use the natural curvature. I'm going to go about halfway, start to encompass the shank, and I'm going to do a few loose wraps. I'm going to pull this up, like so. Now I can fold this other piece over, and when we go to groom it, a lot of that's going to come off. I'm just going to fold that over. You want to check to make sure it's covered the way you want it. You may have to really pull that back, but again, we'll start behind the eye, working kind of uphill. It may not want to go. Sometimes it doesn't. And that's okay if it doesn't want to go. Okay. Now we're going to take our glue and do a wet whip. So we're going to put a little glue right on the line, or on the thread, I should say. Going fishing tomorrow, so I was like, ooh, fishing line. And so I'm going to go ahead and wet whip this closed up front. 5 or 6 good turns. And we'll just trim that out. Okay. And at this point, you're pretty much done. I've got a little bit more on here than I normally do. So what I'll do is I'm going to bring this out front again. And I'm going to start to comb through it with the finer side. Okay. And now I can pull it around like so. And you can get this wet, and you're going to lose some of that meniscus looking stuff in the water. I'm just going to come in and trim my crystal flash off at a reasonable distance, just to add, all it does is just add a tiny bit of flash up front. And now you've got a egg cluster out of McFly foam. So there you go, fairly simple to do. We've got a little bit more out back I just do not like, but you can kind of groom this down as needed or as you like. And if you get these wet and form them, it'll help them hold a little bit better. Now, if you got too much hanging out the back here, which I think I do, I don't like it, you just kind of pinch the end, leave it kind of open, and we'll just start to kind of saw this off back and forth, taking little bits at a time until we get down to kind of the distance that we want, the amount that we want. You can do this until you're satisfied. And if it looks a little flat, you can just grab a few pieces and start to pull them back off towards the rear. And that's it, because you do want some of that egg showing through. It looks good on that side. I'm digging it. So I could sit here and groom this forever, but no need to. That's how you tie it. So if you like the video, always appreciate a thumbs up, like, subscribe, and share. And make sure you come over and check us out flyvault.net for a few bucks a year. You can start to store your patterns digitally and look them back up digitally, so you don't have to keep putting them on pieces of paper. Not only that, but everything that you put into the vault becomes 100% researchable, including your name, all the materials, everything else. And we're bringing forward a bunch of other tech stuff for you tech guys. So make sure you join us before the price goes up, and we bring more tech on board, which should be happening fairly soon. So check that out. If you have any questions, make sure you get me a message. As always, everybody, happy tying. Take care, and I'll see you next time.